Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be opening up this box and it is a 100 amp hour 12 volt battery from CENERIUS. So let's open up the box and see what's inside. Okay, so when you open it up you have a big piece of styrofoam that covers the top. And then we have the battery. Let's go ahead and pull that out. And then also a little bag that has a set of 2 M8 bolts and a couple of plastic covers. Okay, along with the battery, we also have it's like a user guide that comes with it. And it tells you some basic information about the battery. You know, how to charge it from solar, appropriate temperatures of use, how to charge it from an inverter, how to charge it from a generator. It also talks about how you can set these in parallel and in series. So a very useful guide if you've never used a battery before. Okay, and first impressions, this battery is very nice looking. It's I like the logo. I like the design of the battery. It's something that you could look at and see right away what type of battery it is, so I like that. The battery does come with these plastic post covers, which is always nice to see. And it protects the terminals. And it also comes with a nylon carrying strap. I know some things about this battery. First of all, they have a 10-year warranty. Now that is awesome. I love that. Also, this battery is IP65 rated, so it can be indoors or outdoors. It's completely waterproof. They boasted to say that you can get 4,000 cycles. If you charge this up to 100% and discharge it down to 0, you can do that 4,000 times. If you only do an 80% depth of discharge, you're looking at over 5,000 cycles. This battery also has a bunch of safety features on it. It has overcharge and over discharge capabilities. It has over amperage capability. It also has high temperature disconnect and low temperature disconnect. So that's always nice to see in a budget battery. We'll talk about the price in a little bit. But first, let's go ahead and see what the voltage of this battery is right out of the box. Okay, and we are looking at 13.27 volts. That is right where you want to be. I actually like to have it where it's like 13.1 to 13.2, but 13.27, that's totally fine. Let's go ahead and screw on the post bolts. These are M8 post bolts. And they have washers and lock washers built into the post bolts, so you don't have to worry about losing them. That's always nice. All right, some other things about this battery. You can set this battery, you can actually put 16 of these batteries. You can wire 16 together. You can wire 4 in parallel, and you can take 4 sets of 4 in parallel to make a 16 battery bank. So that's called a 4S4P configuration. The weight of the battery is a little bit over 23 pounds, and the dimensions of this battery are 12.95 inches in length. It's also 6.77 inches in depth and 8.42 inches in height. And if you go to CENERIUS.com right now, you can get this battery for $319. That's pretty good for all the stuff that you get from this battery. Let's go ahead and get this thing charged up and do a discharge test to make sure that we're getting our 100 amp hours. Okay, our CENERIUS battery is connected to my battery tester. And if you look at the screen right here, I have everything all set up for the test. And what these mean is right here it says we're going to charge it constant voltage. We're going to charge it up to 14.2 volts at 5 amps. And once it gets to there, it's going to wait 1 minute, and then it's going to do a discharge test. It's going to do a 5 amp discharge until it gets down to 10 volts. And then it's going to wait another minute, and then it will charge it back up at 5 volt, and then it will charge it back up at 5 amps all the way back up to 14.2. So let's go ahead and hit start and let the games begin. And as you can see, our graph starts up. This is our amperage right here, right at 5 amps. And right now our voltage is right around 13.3. So we're gonna let this test run and run and run and run because it's a 5 amp tester and it's a 100 amp hour battery. So that means it's going to take, well, it's gonna charge up, which will probably take 10 hours. And then when it does the discharge test, that will take 20 hours. And then it will charge it back up again, and that will take another 20 hours. So I'll see you in a couple of days when the test is complete. Okay, so I noticed that our discharge test has been completed, and now it's actually charging it back up. But let's go ahead and look at the capacity of this CENERIUS 12 volt 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. All right, you can see right here in this line, first it charged, it put 51 amp hours into the battery, so the battery was right at 50% when I received it. And then it discharged it 104.64 amp hours. So out of a 100 amp hour battery, that is perfect. That's exactly what you want to see. And currently it is charging it back up. And we can see the voltage curve of the entire test. It's nice to see that the voltage, stays pretty consistent throughout the whole test until it reaches the end, and then it just drops off. And that's exactly what this battery chemistry should do. Okay, so I'm gonna probably let this run for a little bit longer, but what I'll probably do is go ahead and stop this and put it on a quicker charger because this is only a 5 amp charger. So that way I can get this battery charged back up and we can continue on with doing some sort of max discharge test. All right. Now that we have this CENERIUS battery charged back up, we are going to go and do some tests to see the capabilities of it. I'm not really interested in what the internals look like so much. As you notice on this channel, I don't tear apart these batteries. But what I am interested in is to make sure that it can pull a large load for at least 5 minutes, and to see if it will heat up. To see anything that goes weird with the battery if you push it to its limit. So we are going to start off by just throwing on this 1500 watt heater, and we're going to run it for 5 minutes to see if anything happens. We also have an amp meter to see what it pulls. This 1500 watt heater, it should pull over 100 amps. So that's why we're going to be measuring it, and we'll see if the battery shuts off because it's only 100 amp BMS. So, it should have a little bit of leeway, but we'll see if it shuts off over a certain amount. Maybe we'll try to see if we can get it to shut off over a certain amount by throwing on maybe another heater or a heat gun or something more. But let's just start with this and see where our, see where our baseline is, starting it with a 1500 watt heater. So let's go ahead and do it. Okay, all we got to do, we have our timer, we have our amp meter, and we have our heater. The LEESKY, it's a 2000 watt inverter, so it should handle whatever we can throw at it from the battery. If not, we'll go ahead and bump up to a 5000 watt inverter. So let's go ahead and get this test started. Okay, you can see my amp meter. Let's go ahead and start the test. Press start, and let's just crank it up to full. Oh wow, look at that. We are already at 167 amps. 160, it's starting to lower back down, but we're pulling 1540 watts right now. All right, I'm pulling up the thermal camera on the battery. It is getting hot. You can see that these terminals are getting 300 degrees. So I'm starting to smell something. I don't know if it's from the heater. I mean, the heater is, oh my God, the terminals are actually hotter than the heater. Oh, we got a beep. That came from the inverter though. That's showing that the battery voltage is actually down to 10.3. And it's only been It's only been 3 minutes now. Yeah, these terminals are hot. Look at that, 300, oh my God, 350 degrees. And this thing isn't shutting off. All right, I'm starting to see smoke. Starting to see smoke from my wires, so we are going to stop this test. Yeah, I probably need different ways to clamp these on because yeah, the rubber on this clamp was actually starting to melt. But everything else ran great. So I'm going to go ahead and wire this up with a proper set of wiring, and we're going to run this test again. Okay, we're going to start the test over again. It did make it 3 minutes and 45 seconds at 160 amps, which is, I don't know if that's concerning or if that's great. I feel like the battery should shut off before that, but I was actually really worried because those terminals were getting way over 300 degrees. And so I went ahead and bumped up pretty much all my connections. Let's look at it. Okay, now we're using a different inverter. The inverter, I don't care, I mean, the 2000 watt worked just fine for this application, but I wanted the double connections. So what I have are two 4-gauge cables for the positive going to two separate connections, and I have a 4-gauge cable here, and I think these are two 6 or maybe 5-gauge cables here. So I am over cabled for the application that I'm doing now. What I'm thinking is, I wonder if these are still going to get really hot now that we have all the proper cabling, because those battery clamps, they're just clamped on, not a very good connection. Nothing was tightened. So I'll be interested to see if these still get well over 300 degrees after a few minutes of running this heater, or if everything's going to stay cool. But we're going to go ahead and just run this again and make sure that we can run the 5 minutes. We're going to do a thermal camera on everything to make sure that everything is staying cool. We're not seeing hot spots like on the front or the top of the battery, something like that. So let's go ahead and get it started. Okay, I have the exact same setup. Our heater's right over there, plugged into our Mxmoonfree 5000 watt inverter now. So let's go ahead and turn the heater on full blast. Oh wait, let's reset our timer. Okay, I'm turning on the heater now. All right, and you can see on the amp meter, it's drawing up to over, oh, it's only 150, it's only reading 150 amps this time. It might be because the heater was already kind of warm, so. It could also be that this inverter is actually more efficient at running this load. But after a couple minutes, about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, we'll go ahead and click on the thermal camera and we'll look at what the heat of those terminals is. And we'll see if there's any hot spots on the battery itself. All right, we are actually 3 minutes into this test, and we're looking at the battery on the thermal camera right now, and look at those terminals. You can see that the positive terminal, which is on the left, is running right at 102 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, the cabling, yeah, the cabling is cool. It's 83 degrees Fahrenheit. That is room temperature. I mean, that's not warm at all. That is the difference between proper cable sizing and improper cable sizing. But I just find that amazing. That's, yeah, let's just look at this terminal right here. Yeah, look at that, 106 degrees. And it's been running now for 4 minutes. And if you look at the amperage, we've been pulling 134 amps this entire time. Oh, look over here. There's a hot spot on the battery right there. Let's check it out. Let's see how hot it really is. but it's not hot. Look at that, 95 degrees. So even though it looks like it's hot, I mean, to the touch, it's not hot at all. I mean, it's not going to melt through the case at all. So, all right, we've hit our 5 minutes. Everything is still staying pretty cool. Let's see this terminal over here. Yep, we're up to 114 degrees. So that is perfectly safe for this battery. Okay, so we just ran a 1500 watt heater, which was pulling, what, about 134 amps from that battery for 5 minutes. And it stayed relatively cool. It powered it with no problems. You realize before the voltage of the battery dropped down to like 10 point something. I mean, the other inverter actually started kind of beeping a little bit because the voltage was so low. On this one, that voltage stayed right at 12, 12.1, 12.2 that entire time. So your wiring, that's how important it is. Make sure you have your proper wiring. Spend that extra money to make sure. You do not want your wires to get hot. You don't want to lose energy due to heat, and you want to have all your proper connections. You don't want to have, you don't want to have battery clamps on your batteries when you're pulling loads like this, because it just it makes your batteries push a lot more electricity out. So what I want to do though is, this battery just pulled 134 amps for 5 minutes. Over 5 minutes, actually 5 minutes and 33 seconds. Now it's 100 amp BMS. So when is it going to shut off? Is it going to shut off when it gets too hot? Or will it shut off because there is some sort of over amperage protection? So I've got a 1000 watt heat gun back here as well. It's actually rated for 1200 watts or something like that, but I usually only am able to get, between 900 and 1000 watts out of it. But still, that's going to push this thing over 200 amps. And I want to see how long it can do that. I'm going to run that for 5 minutes. It shouldn't run that for 5 minutes. It's either going to shut off safely or it's going to shut off and I'm never going to be able to turn it back on. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and reset our timer. Let's go ahead and first turn on the heat gun to full blast. And that is pulling 102 amps right now. Oh, start our timer. Kind of forgot about that, it's all right. So 102 amps, no big deal. And now let's put our heater on full blast. And now we are pulling 277 amps. I mean, that's crazy. Okay, I got the thermal camera up. And it looks like our peak range is 100. And it looks like our peak range is 123 degrees Fahrenheit. Coming from the terminals, probably. Let's look. Yep. 123 degrees Fahrenheit from the terminals. Let's see that hot spot on the battery right there. That's nothing to be concerned about. I mean, the whole battery itself is not really 134. Yes, these are getting pretty warm. It's only been a minute and 40 seconds. Yeah, these terminals are starting to get hot. The wiring though, look at the wiring. I mean, the wiring is still under 100 degrees. So all that wiring is really keeping it cool. But these terminals are getting warm. We're looking at 145 degrees. But still, 260 amps. Look at that. Can you see that? 259 amps. And it's up to 153 degrees Fahrenheit. But the inverter is nice and cool. I mean, it's room temperature still, no problem. I mean, the wiring is still, oh, it's starting to get, oh, something just shut off. All right, well, the inverter just shut off, and I'm not sure if it's because the BMS turned off after 3 minutes. But let's check the voltage. Yes, the BMS has shut off. It's showing no voltage. Like 2.5 volts. So I don't know if it overheated in there. I mean, the case of the battery is not warm. I mean, it's room temperature. Around the terminals, around this terminal right here, that's a little warm, but I mean, still, it's probably, you know, 105 degrees. So I wonder how long it will take for this battery to start back up. Okay, well, it's been over 11 minutes since this battery has shut off. Actually, it's probably been over 12 minutes. And honestly, I don't know how long it would take, if this battery overheated internally, how long it would actually take to cool off. But what I'm gonna try to see if I can wake it back up. And if that doesn't work, it might be that it's still overheated, so I'll have to wait longer. So if it doesn't work, then I'll come back in a couple hours and I'll see if I can wake it up then. So let's do a wake-up call. Okay, and to try to wake up this battery, I am going to go ahead and use my Haisito 20 amp charger. And what I need to do is I just need to touch these on here for a second, and it should wake the battery back up. So I'm just going to go ahead and clamp this one on, and we'll know if it wakes back up by the amperage, because the inverter is still on, so it should jump up to like 1 amp or something like that if it does wake up. And then we'll test the voltage. So let's go ahead and do the touch. And that was nothing. So let's go ahead and just clamp it on. And it's trying to charge it. But no, it does show the voltage of the battery is at 13.3 again. And it's because I didn't have my inverter turned on. So that's why it wasn't showing any amperage changes. So, so that did wake up the battery. Sorry about that. That was completely my fault for not double checking my work, which you should always do. So that did wake up the battery. The battery is fine. It did what it was supposed to. Okay, so what did we learn from that test? Well, we learned that this battery could easily pull 130, 135 amps for 5 minutes, no problem. With the proper cable sizing and the proper inverter, the battery terminals did not really even get that hot. I don't think they even reached 110 degrees, which is completely fine for a battery. And then we introduced a heat gun on top of that, and it pushed it up to like 255 to 260 amps pulling from that battery. And it did that for right around 3 minutes before the battery shut off. Now, I don't know if that was because of over temperature protection or if it does have a 3-minute over amperage protection. But still, you're able to pull huge amperage out of this battery for multiple minutes if needed. And it's nice that the battery does shut off. The one thing is I waited over 10 minutes to wait for this battery to cool down, which again, I don't know how long it would actually take, but it never woke back up. So you would definitely need to be able to wake up your BMS if you ever had this occurrence. All right, and I'm actually kind of disappointed with myself for not reading this in the troubleshooting of the manual. It does say that if your battery does turn off, that you should keep it disconnected for 30 minutes and it will automatically recover. I'm just gonna go with what the manual says to be true because I don't want to recreate this test because I feel like it was stressed enough to pull 260 amps from this battery. So just remember, 30 minutes, try the battery again if you don't have a way of waking it up already by having a charger or another 12-volt source to wake up that BMS. Okay, so what are my thoughts on the CENERIUS 12-volt 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery? You know, this battery has a lot for a little price. I think it's only like a little over 300 bucks maybe. All right, with that you get 100 amp hours and you get low charge temperature protection, which is a great thing to see in batteries nowadays. It really should be a standard, and I'm sure in the next year or two it will be. Also, I mean, it can power through. I mean, we pushed it to its limit. You know, I pushed 130, 135 amps through there, and it ran it no problem. I pushed 260 amps through there, and it properly shut off. Now, when I say properly is after about 2 or 3 minutes, the battery should shut off either from overheating or from just an over amperage event. So it's good that this battery just didn't sit there on my bench and melt. So, because it did get hot. And also, I gotta say it again, make sure you have proper cabling, proper wiring, everything is clamped down. You know, I did the first test and it pushed so much more amperage through those wires, and it heated up really fast and it got really hot to the point where it started melting the plastic on my clamps. So again, I can't stress it enough, make sure you spend the money on those cables. You know, you can save a little bit of money by getting a budget battery, but make sure you don't go cheap on your wiring. Make sure you get proper wiring. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions about the CENERIUS 100 amp hour 12-volt lithium iron phosphate battery, please leave them in the comments. I'll have everything I used in the description so you can click on the links and look more into them. Thanks again. Have a great day. Bye-bye.